Dear viewers, I'm Barrister Miti. I'm an advocate of Supreme Court of Bangladesh and partner of Legal Counsel. Today, I'm inviting you all to watch a special program, Global Business and Law. This program has been arranged by Channel I, and the concept of this program has been developed by Legal Counsel, which is a full-service corporate law firm of Bangladesh. Today, we have more than 10 million viewers who are watching us at Channel I from different parts of the world. We are also going live from the official Facebook page of Channel I. Viewers, the devastation of coronavirus has hit hard almost all the countries of the world. Bangladesh is also affected rigorously by this deadly virus. Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, has unveiled a set of financial packages to its citizens to shield our economy from the impact of this pandemic. However, the experts are saying that a number of people all around the world will lose their job. In this program today, we'll discuss about the current employment situation that is prevailing around the world in the wake of coronavirus and its legal aspects. Today, I am very honored and privileged to have 5 distinguished guests from different parts of the world. All of them are prominent lawyers in their respective countries. I have Barrister Omar H. Khan with me. Barrister Omar H. Khan is the head of chambers of Legal Counsel. He's an advocate of Supreme Court of Bangladesh. Legal Counsel is one of the most leading corporate law chambers based in Dhaka. I have Mr. Pankaj Singla. Pankaj is the partner of Acumen Juris. This is a very reputed law firm in India based in Delhi. I have Ms. Naima Ahmed. Naima Ahmed is the senior associate of Asghar Ali law firm, and this is also a very reputed law firm based in Lahore. Naima is also a columnist, and she regularly writes in different popular dailies in Pakistan. I have Mr. Dr. Olugbenga Oki Samuel. Dr. Samuel is a legal practitioner in Nigeria. He also teaches at a reputed university of Nigeria and another reputed university at Uganda. Then I have Miss Lucy Carroll from Australia. Lucy is a practicing solicitor and she works for Marrickville Legal Center, Australia. Welcome to the show. Viewers, now I would like to go to Barrister Omar H. Khan. Omar, can you please tell us about the current employment situation that is prevailing in Bangladesh right now?
Yeah, thank you, Barrister Sanjana, for asking me the question. You see, it is we are going through a very unprecedented and unpredictable situation in the history or the modern history of human at this moment, and Bangladesh is not out of it. So while the whole world is experiencing unprecedented situation, not only in terms of economy or employment, in terms of everything, people are striving just to survive and live, and Bangladesh is definitely a part of it. Though we have been hitting the highest GDP in South Asia for last consecutive years, but it is acceptable that Bangladesh is not having the strongest economy in the world. So we need to have we are likely to face some devastation, despite the fact, as you have correctly mentioned, that our government has declared a lot of stimulus packages which is affordable within our country. And in the last budget, which has been proposed last week only, we have seen also that the government has been keeping this corona situation seriously in mind and has also kept ample amount of money to deal with this corona situation and offer different stimulus packages. Despite everything, you see, we cannot say that the situation is unaffected. We have seen inconsistent response in the market. Why I'm saying inconsistent? Because, for example, we have seen a lot of large corporates and big MNCs. They have gone for layoff and retrenching their staff maybe at the very beginning when the coronavirus started in Bangladesh. By March, they have gone into layoff and retrenchment, while they could actually go for a long time because of their financial stability. On the other hand, we have also seen that there are some very small entrepreneurs, SME, and young entrepreneurs. They are not yet declaring layoff. They are not retrenching their staff. They are trying to survive within their very limited means. So the market response is very inconsistent, because maybe because of the fact that nobody was ever prepared and nothing was planned for such a situation. So the things went a little unplanned here and there. But I would say that the people who are engaged in the informal sector, not in the formal sectors, and those who are self-employed, so far they're the most seriously or adversely affected in Bangladesh. They are just, going through some real hard time because all these stimulus packages may not directly reach and save their employment because of their different sectors and self-employment situation. Having said that, I must also say that it is not the end of the story. We need to really carefully observe how the pandemic situation develops in Bangladesh in next 1 or 2 months, because all the measures that we were talking about are interim measures, and if the situation does not improve in 1 or 2 months, maybe these interim measures will not actually be sufficient. And at one point in time, even these large corporates, and starting from all the organizations, entrepreneurs, may not be able to maintain their employees from alternative means. So I would say that we are yet to face the real devastation in terms of employment, and let's hope that we can come out of it and the situation really improves in June and July, so that we actually do not see a very bad time.
Thank you, Barrister.
Thank you, Sanjana.
Thank you. Now I'm going to Pankaj. Pankaj, I'd just put the same question to you. What is the challenges actually India is currently facing in terms of employment during this pandemic?
Thank you, Sanjana, very much. Just like my friend Omar pointed out, nobody in this world was really ready for this pandemic. Nobody could have predicted the amount of problems or the devastation in terms of employment, in terms of the movement of humans and the laborers or the traffic or anything practically. I think we are also in the similar situation in India, where we are learning as the time goes by. So the first lockdown was announced in India on March 24th. That was a small lockdown for 14 days, but which has been extended continuously. So in order to deal with the situation where the laborers or the employment loss could be another pandemic like a situation which could cause bigger problems than the pandemic itself, the government of India basically required all the corporates not to fire their employees. Those measures were specifically taken to protect the employment of blue-collar laborers. But at the same time, the regulations were vague enough that it covered practically every employee in the country. However, as the time has passed, that notification has been withdrawn. Now, with the new regulations coming into place, now the companies have started taking steps to reduce the number of employees that they have, since business has come to a standstill for a number of industries. So similar situation in India, where we were one of the fastest growing large economy in the world. Now we are facing a slowdown caused by pandemic. Right now we're in the middle of unlock 2.0, what we are calling. But having said that, what is practically happening, people are still not still not comfortable enough to walk down on the streets or go back to offices or to open their shops or to open the factories. So the number of people on the streets are fewer. Similarly, the amount of businesses is small. The business cycle has come to a standstill, which is why we are still facing a big problem with the GDP. So the economy is not moving, which is directly resulting into unemployment. A number of organizations have started taking measures to reduce their workforce to deal with the situation. And again, I think similar to what Omar just pointed out, I think we'll have to see another 2 months or 3 months into it when we really start to feel the heat of this pandemic in terms of the job losses in the country. That is where we really have to be prepared to take other actions to do something where we can be at a situation where job losses do not result in bigger losses of lives than the pandemic itself.
Yeah. Thank you, Pankaj. Now I am moving to Naima. Naima, we know that the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Imran Khan, he gave a call to the employers not to fire the employees during this pandemic. And also in your country, they have announced a number of financial packages. So what's happening there? I mean, what's the current situation prevailing in Pakistan right now?
Thank you, Sanjana, for having me. So this is quite a pertinent question, and of course, as our neighboring countries as well as countries all over the world are trying to power through this, it is an unprecedented time we're living in. You're correct in saying that Imran Khan and the government has initiated certain policy incentives. They still need to be seen how, in the long run, they can benefit, because the pandemic, unfortunately, is here to stay till the end of the year. And we're in third month of this virus, which is spiking. So it is estimated that Pakistan at least will see around 18 million, if not more, job losses due to COVID. So, and the government has said that these private companies should delay their massive layoffs. And the government is still trying to sort of protect the economy with a slowdown, but it's an inevitable lesser of the two evils, I would say, because on one hand, we have there are a lot of people living below the poverty line, where you have to keep the economy going and you have to go for something that the government is calling a smart lockdown. And then there's something called where people are, every day we hear number of deaths spiking, then, and we need to go for something more than just a smart lockdown. So right now we should have had a very stricter lockdown, regardless of how many job layoffs had happened. But this is not, it's not the ideal situation. It's not going to be for the coming months. And I hope that we make it through. But the thousands of jobs and labor unions, especially the labor unions, are protesting. And they have been, labor has been fired in the informal economy as well as the formal economy in the last 2 months. So this is the current situation. In terms of incentives, there's something called SARS program that we have launched, which is essentially a care emergency cash program, which offers people financial assistance of up to 12,000 Pakistan rupees, which sort of comes around $75 per month. But again, $75 for 12 million families every month, and the number is rising. It's not a good sight at all. So we're trying, but let's see.
Yeah. Thank you, Naima. We actually more or less we can understand from the above discussion that having the similar socio-economic condition, we are also facing the similar challenges and similar problems, and where we know that we already had an existing problem of a high rate of unemployment issues in our countries. So this is really devastating for us. So now I'm moving to a different continent. Dr. Samuel, I'm coming to you. We know that Nigeria is the most populous country of Africa, and in your country, 20% of your population, they depend on the tourism industry and hospitality industry for their livelihood. So as the borders are closed, commodities cannot be supplied, and the manufacturers are also incurring a huge loss. We know that in these sectors many people are going jobless. So can you give us an idea about the overall situation, employment situation of Nigeria that is currently prevailing during this pandemic? Samuel. Mr. Samuel, I'm giving you the floor. Can you tell us about the current situation, employment situation?
Thank you very much. The situation in Nigeria, yes. The situation in Nigeria, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please, carry on. Yes, please. Yeah,
okay.
We can.
The situation in Nigeria is not different from what we have in other parts of the world. Yes, considering the fact that, like Barrister Omar said, this is an unprecedented situation. Nobody prepared for this. Nobody was expecting this. And so everybody has been caught napping here. And as usual, the measure across the world has been the lockdown arrangement. So with the lockdown, a lot of industries, a lot of businesses are not working. And particularly, the low-income labor is worst hit. As you mentioned earlier, the low-income labor, these are workers that are hired maybe on monthly or daily basis. So automatically, most of these guys have lost their job. And again, looking at maybe the more formal sector, the government has been trying to put in place measures to discourage corporations from laying off workers. A lot of corporations have actually come out with plans to terminate employment of the workers. But the federal government has been coming up with some measures. For instance, there's a bill before the National Assembly that is going to grant some percentage of tax relief for any corporation that is not sacking its staff. So this is just the situation. But generally, a lot of issues are coming up. Workers are being, those that are not disengaged are facing different challenges. Having to work from home, the tools are not provided for them to work from home. In some situations, workers are forced to go on annual leave prematurely that they did not plan for. Some of the corporations are converting this moment to maybe leave without pay. Although these are the kind of situation we're having. Generally, hiring is low. Nobody is hiring any worker. But a great percentage of the informal sector, workers in the informal sector, are home. And nobody is paying them because they don't have formal contract between them and their employers. So the situation, the picture is not too good. Particularly those that work on daily basis, automatically they have lost their means of livelihood. Though government has tried to distribute food and all those stuff, but these are not enough, particularly when it comes to earning wages or salary. So this is the situation around here.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Samuel. This is very clear from the discussion that Nigeria is also facing similar situation like us. There are many common factors like the day laborers, the informal sectors, the workers who are working in informal sectors. They are being affected. They are suffering most during this situation. So now I am going to Lucy Carroll. Lucy, we know that Australian government has announced a huge stimulus packages for its citizens, and still many people are losing jobs. So please, can you please enlighten us about the situation in Australia?
Of course, thank you. So I guess the situation in Australia is that, as everyone has alluded to, no one was prepared for this. It was something that did have to be dealt with quickly and adapt as things developed across the country. That led to, I guess, poor communication initially from the government with how to deal with businesses that could no longer safely operate and stay open. in light of the restrictions and the lockdown that came in late March. As that happened, employers did react quickly, which led to a lot of staff being fired because there seemed to be no other alternative that was being provided at that time, and a lack of education around ways to deal with employees when there was no work for them. As things have progressed and the lockdown had continued, there was JobKeeper implemented, which is a government subsidy that is passed on to employers to pay their staff an amount of $1,500 a fortnight if they were employed as of 1 March. It was implemented to try to assist people that were casual workers as well as your permanent staff to retain the employment relationship, even if there was no work to be done until the pandemic is under control. Even though that has been put in place, there were stringent requirements that needed to be met to receive the subsidy. It was also something that employers could opt into. It was not mandatory. So if a company did not want to partake in it because they were not experiencing a large enough loss, or if they didn't have a large enough workforce to justify it, they were not partaking in it. And you were still seeing companies laying off staff and making them either redundant or just firing them just to get by at the moment. In saying that, this subsidy is in place until September, when there are no firm plans at this point in time to extend that offering. So at this point in time, as we are experiencing the lifting of restrictions and the lifting of a lockdown in phases, we are seeing businesses being able to open back up in the hardest hit industries like the retail and the hospitality industries, where there are large amounts of casual workers and I guess the lack of ability to work from home or to work safely. We don't know how this will affect them once that JobKeeper subsidy is taken away in September, if it's not extended. It's hard to see whether this is the peak of the impact it will have on unemployment in Australia, or if after September there will be a second wave that could either be as bad or worse.
Thank you, Lucy. We can understand the situation in Australia. প্রিয় দর্শক, আজকে আমরা চ্যানেলের পর্দায় আপনাদের সাথে আছি। আমরা একটি বিশেষ প্রোগ্রামের আয়োজন করা হয়েছে এবং এই প্রোগ্রামটির নাম হচ্ছে গ্লোবাল বিজনেস অ্যান্ড ল। এই প্রোগ্রামে আজকে আমরা জানি যে করোনা ভাইরাসের প্রভাবে আসলে আমাদের বিশ্ব অর্থনীতি আজকে বিপর্যস্ত, এবং বিশেষজ্ঞরা কিন্তু বলছেন যে অনেক মানুষরা আসলে, অনেক লোক এই সময় আসলে কর্মহীন হয়ে পড়বেন। সারা পৃথিবীর একটি বড় অংশ আসলে কর্মহীন হয়ে পড়বেন তারা। তো আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানে আমরা আসলে আয়োজন করেছি এবং এখানে আমরা পৃথিবীর 5টি দেশের থেকে 5 জন অতিথিকে আমরা আমাদের এখানে আমন্ত্রণ জানিয়েছি, এবং আমরা আসলে তাদের কাছ থেকে জানতে চাচ্ছি যে বিশ্বে আসলে করোনা পরিস্থিতিতে কর্মসংস্থান নিয়ে যে সংকটটা দেখা দিয়েছে, এই সংকট সম্পর্কে তাদের নিজ নিজ দেশে কি অবস্থা, সেই সম্পর্কে আমরা আসলে তাদের সাথে কথা বলছি। আমরা বাংলাদেশের আইনজীবী, পাকিস্তান এবং ইন্ডিয়ার আইনজীবীর সাথে কথা বলে আমরা যেটা জানতে পারলাম যে আমাদের, এবং এমনকি নাইজেরিয়াতেও, আমাদের এই 3টি দেশের আসলে যে আর্থসামাজিক প্রেক্ষাপট কিছুটা একই ধরনের, এবং আমাদের কিন্তু একই ধরনের আসলে ঝুঁকি এবং একই ধরনের অর্থনৈতিক অবস্থা। সো যার ফলে এই দেশগুলোতে আমরা কিন্তু একই ধরনের চ্যালেঞ্জ আমরা আসলে দেখতে পাচ্ছি সামনে। এবং এখানে আমাদের বক্তারা তারা আমাদেরকে বললেন যে এখন পর্যন্ত আমরা আসলে আমাদের নিজেদের জীবন এবং অস্তিত্ব টেকানোর জন্যই আসলে আমরা সকলে মানে প্রাণপণ চেষ্টা করে যাচ্ছি। কাজেই এই মুহূর্তে হয়তোবা এই যে কর্মসংস্থানের সংকটটা, এই মুহূর্তে তারা বলছে এখনো প্রকট হয়ে উঠেনি। এটি আরো 2-3 মাস গেলে আমরা হয়তোবা এর কি ইম্প্যাক্ট বা এর কি ফলাফল, সেটি আসলে আমরা আরো 2 থেকে 3 মাস গেলে কতদিন এই লকডাউন বর্ধিত হবে, কতদিন আরো এই অবস্থা চলবে, তার উপরে আসলে ডিপেন্ড করবে। অস্ট্রেলিয়া থেকে যিনি জয়েন করলেন তিনিও বললেন যে তাদের দেশে অনেক সাবসিডি দেওয়া হচ্ছে, গভর্নমেন্টের পক্ষ থেকে ক্যাশ সাবসিডি দেওয়া হচ্ছে তাদের দেশের যারা সিটিজেন আছে তাদের জন্য। তারপরেও সেই দেশে আসলে অনেকেই কর্মহীন হয়ে পড়ছেন এবং দুঃখজনকভাবে যে বেশ কিছু কিছু জায়গায় অস্ট্রেলিয়াতেও দেখা যাচ্ছে যে অনেক জায়গায় আনফেয়ারলি তাদেরকে আসলে ডিসমিস করা হচ্ছে, চাকরি থেকে তাদেরকে আসলে চাকরিচ্যুত করা হচ্ছে। তো আমরা আসলে এখন আমাদের সেকেন্ড রাউন্ডে চলে যাব এবং চ্যানেল আয়ের পর্দায় আপনারা আমাদেরকে দেখতে পাচ্ছেন। আমরা চ্যানেল আয়ের অফিসিয়াল ফেসবুক থেকে লাইভে আছি। তো আমাদের সঙ্গে আপনারা থাকুন। আমরা এখন আমাদের প্রোগ্রামের সেকেন্ড রাউন্ডে যাচ্ছি এবং সেই রাউন্ডে আমরা আসলে তাদের কাছে জানতে চাবো যে ছাঁটাই সংক্রান্ত তাদের দেশে কোনো এমপ্লয়ি যারা আছে তাদেরকে বা শ্রমিকদেরকে কিভাবে ছাঁটাই করা হচ্ছে, সেটা কি আইন মেনে করা হচ্ছে নাকি, বা তাদের দেশে কি ধরনের আইন রয়েছে যার মাধ্যমে আসলে চাকরিচ্যুত করা হয় বা ছাঁটাই করা হয়, কোনো ধরনের ক্ষতিপূরণ দেওয়া হচ্ছে নাকি, বা কি কি ক্ষতিপূরণ আসলে একজন পেতে পারে। তো সেই বিষয়ে আলোচনা করব। আমাদের অস্ট্রেলিয়াতে আমাদের প্রচুর প্রবাসী বাঙালিরা রয়েছেন, অনেক স্টুডেন্ট রয়েছেন যারা সেখানে পার্ট টাইম জব করে থাকেন। তো তারাও কিন্তু একটি খুব কঠিন পরিস্থিতির মুখোমুখি পড়ছেন, যেহেতু অনেক ফুল টাইমাররাই সেখানে থাকতে পারছেন না, অনেক আনডকুমেন্টেড ইমিগ্রেন্ট যারা রয়েছেন প্রবাসে তাদের আসলে তারা অনেকটা অনিশ্চয়তার মধ্যে জীবন কাটাচ্ছে। তো আমরা আমাদের অস্ট্রেলিয়ান লয়ার যে আছেন আইনজীবী লুসি, তার কাছ থেকে আমরা জানতে চাবো যে আসলে অস্ট্রেলিয়ান গভর্নমেন্ট কি কোনো ধরনের পদক্ষেপ নিচ্ছেন এই ধরনের পার্ট টাইম যারা আছেন, ইমিগ্রেন্ট যারা আছেন, প্রবাসী বাংলাদেশি বা অন্যান্য দেশ থেকে যারা এসছেন, তাদের জন্য কোনো ধরনের ফাইন্যান্সিয়াল সাপোর্ট বা তাদেরকে কোনো ধরনের সাপোর্ট দিচ্ছেন নাকি, এটা আমরা তাদের কাছে জানতে যাব। তো প্রথমে আমি আসলে ব্যারিস্টার ওমার কাছে যাচ্ছি। ব্যারিস্টার ওমার, ক্যান ইউ প্লিজ টেল আস অ্যাবাউট দ্য লস regarding the retrenchment or like when an employee is being separated from his employment on the ground of redundancy? So what law says about that?
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, thank you. You see, I mean, in Bangladesh, the law for redundancy, what we call retrenchment, when an employee is separated on the ground of redundancy, we call it retrenchment. In Bengali, it's called chatai. It is quite straightforward. So if some organization really want to retrench somebody, there is not much of a difficulty. The governing legislation is the Bangladesh Labour Act of 2006, which says that if somebody has been working in an organization for at least 1 year, then if he or she needs to be retrenched, then by providing 1 month's notice or 1 month's basic salary, you can retrench them. And as a compensation, the law says that for every completed year of service, the retrenched staff is eligible to receive 30 days basic salary. So for example, if somebody has worked for 5 years, then he will get 5 months or 5 into 30 days basic salary. As a procedural formality, unlike other forms of separation, a notice of retrenchment has to be served as an intimation, not as a permission, to the Chief Inspector of Labour under the Ministry of Labour. So you see, I mean, it's fairly straightforward. So it's not, I would say that if any entrepreneur, the employer wants to retrench, they can retrench quite easily. The employee, unfortunately, may not have a lot of strong legal recourse against that if the employer wants. But maybe at this moment, the fundamental question would be not the strict exercise of law, rather strict exercise of prudence and management skill in determining whether they really want to, leave and let the skilled worker and, every person go, because, this is still, as I said, we are still in a kind of an interim situation. All these measures are interim measures. So maybe unless somebody is really into deep financial crisis, it's not yet the time to think of retrenchment. It might be a little premature for those organizations. And also, like as Pankaj has said, Naima has said, like India and Pakistan, in Bangladesh also, you know that the RMG sector is the largest export sector in Bangladesh. The government has also directed the RMG sector entrepreneurs not to retrench their staff till the month of June. So we have also seen that the RMG owners have been abiding by that instruction despite the difficult situation, despite all majority of the orders has been cancelled, and the same is true for other sectors. So so that is the legal situation, which is fairly straightforward in Bangladesh.
Yes, thank you, Barrister Umar. It's quite clear. So now I'm moving to Pankaj. Pankaj, what are the laws regarding the retrenchment in India? What laws?
Yes, thank you. The laws, labor and employment laws in India are a little more complex than those in Bangladesh. So both the state governments as well as the federal governments have the power to enact laws protecting the employment or regulating the employment and labor matters in the country. So most of the laws at present are the federal government enacted laws in the country, and most of them by default have been designed to protect the blue collar laborers, factory workers, or the industrial labor. While the white collar workers are protected by the laws that are enacted by the state governments, but those are not as strict as the laws that are enacted to protect the job losses or the regulate the jobs or the employment of blue collar laborers in the country. So in terms of retrenchment of blue collar labor, the law has been divided. Basically, the notice period is the similar to Bangladesh, but it's from 1 to 3 months, depending upon the size of the number of the employees at the organization. So the notice period could range from 1 month to 3 months. Similarly, the compensation is if the employee has worked for more than a year. So on an average, it's 15 days compensation for every year that the laborer or the employee that has worked in that organization has to be paid. In addition to that, if it's a person has completed more than 5 years, then the gratuity laws kick in, and then the gratuity compensation also has to be calculated accordingly. So that is the basic situation there in terms of retrenchment of employees in the country. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Pankaj. It's we can see that it's more or less similar to Bangladeshi law.
More or less similar
So
to Bangladesh.
now, দর্শক আমরা আসলে ব্যারিস্টার উমর এবং পঙ্কজ মিস্টার পঙ্কজের কাছ থেকে যেটা জানতে পারলাম যে বাংলাদেশে কিন্তু অনেক জায়গায় ছাঁটাই হচ্ছে এবং অনেক ক্ষেত্রে ল হয়তো বা লফুলি কাউকে যদি ছাঁটাই করা হয় সেক্ষেত্রে হয়তো একজন ওয়ার্কারের তেমন কোনো প্রোটেকশন থাকে না আইনগত, কিন্তু তারপরেও এখানে ওনারা যেটা বলতে চাচ্ছেন যে একজন ছাঁটাই করার আগে একজন কর্মচারীকে প্রত্যেকে যাতে বা এমপ্লয়িকে ছাঁটাই করার আগে আমাদেরকে দেখতে হবে যে সেই মানুষটার ভিতরে কতটুকু পোটেনশিয়াল আছে বা এটাকে আসলে ওয়াইজ হবে নাকি। সো অ্যাটলিস্ট মানে খুব চট করে ছাঁটাই করার আগে আসলে একটা ট্রেনিং দিয়ে স্কিল করা হয় একজন এমপ্লয়িকে, অনেক সময় লাগে একজন স্কিলড এবং ভালো এমপ্লয়ি পেতে। সো এই কারণে ছাঁটাইয়ের অপশনে আগে না যেয়ে যদি অন্যান্য যে আইনগত ব্যবস্থাগুলো আছে সেগুলো যদি নেওয়া যায় তাহলে আসলে সবার জন্য এটি আসলে কল্যাণকর হয়। সো নাও আই এম মুভিং টু
Sanjana, I would quickly like to point out this is important because in terms of if your retrenchment is taking place at an organization that has more than 100 employees in India, contrary to Bangladesh, we need to take prior permission from the state government in that case. But if it's below than that, it's only intimation.
Okay, that's great. That's a great information actually. It's a good protection for the employees. Now, Naima, can you briefly tell us, like in 2 minutes, what are the laws regarding the redundancy in your country?
Sure, thank you, Sanjana. So just briefly, we have a law called Industries Relations Act, which formally defines an employer and employee and essentially caters to workers working in factories, industries, and the private sector. So people like and anybody who's working for an undertaking or even the government for that matter. So it defines it's one of those laws that is completely uniformed and harmonized. We have many other labor codes as well, but they're not as standardized as this law. So it's called Industries Relations Act again of 2012, and it regulates the labor management. And we have something called, so the form of terminations have been described as either retrenched, discharged, or dismissed. So these are the words that are used in our law, and we can any laborer who has suffered or has been dismissed can bring a grievance to a special labor code. So we have a special labor codes that you can go, and most of the rate of adjudication in labor courts is much higher than compared to the other cases that go to other courts. So they also have a higher rate of seeking recourse in the labor code. And so in short, this is the law, and its sections define the termination, and like my other counterparts speakers said right now, you either will get a bonus if you're dismissed, or you will get a gratuity if that's been accumulated, or you'll be laid off, and then that procedure will be defined as according to the laws of justice by the labor courts per se. And labor unions also have a part in this, and you can also go and share your grievance with them if you've been treated unjustly by your employer. So this is briefly the landscape.
Thank you, Naima. But now moving to Dr. Samuel. Samuel, what are the laws regarding the termination in your country? If you can tell us briefly, like in 2 minutes. Samuel. Samuel, can you hear me? Samuel, can you hear me?
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Barrister. The situation in Nigeria is that, in Nigeria, the Labor Act, in Nigeria, different statutes are applicable. I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, please carry on.
Okay. In Nigeria, the termination of employment will depend on the nature of the employment. There are categories of employment. You have employments that are rooted in the statute, that are backed up by the statutes. And we have employments that are guided by the contract between the parties, the employer and the employee. And equally, we have employment that we call employment at will. So for the disengagement of worker under this condition, the terms that you have under the statutes, the conditions in the statute, will determine how you are going to determine or terminate an employment that is backed up by the statute. Then again, in terms of a contract of employment, where there's an agreement between the parties, particularly where there's a letter of appointment, it's expected that the conditions will be written in the letters of appointment. So if anyone is going to be terminated, the terms as written in the letter of appointment will have to guide the process of disengagement. And like Barrister Umar said, this will depend on the number of the notice that you are supposed to give. You give notice, maybe it depends on the period. So these are clearly written in the agreement. But again, the major problem or the major concern that we should express now is about those that falls within the category of the employees at will, people that are employed at the will of the employers. These are the people that whose terms of employment are not secured by any contract. So these are people that are being laid off on a daily basis. And unfortunately, there's no legal protection for this category of people. Where the court comes in, but you find out that the rule has always been that you cannot compel an employer to take an employee. An unwilling employer cannot be compelled to take an employee. This is the common law position, and the same position is applicable in Nigeria. Even when the man said, I no longer want to, even when there's a contract of employment, the man, the only thing that man can get is that maybe damages, and the damages will be limited to maybe his entitlement, under that contract. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. প্রিয় দর্শক, আমরা নাইমা, পাকিস্তানের আইনজীবী নাইমার থেকে আমরা যেটি জানতে পারলাম যে বাংলাদেশের এবং ইন্ডিয়ার ল এবং পাকিস্তানি ল কিন্তু সিমিলার, এবং সেখানে কিন্তু একই ধরনের সিচুয়েশন, সেখানে আপনার ছাঁটাইয়ের ব্যাপারে এবং অন্যান্য যে বিষয়গুলো আছে সেখানে একই ধরনের আইন আসলে সেখানে ফলো করা হয়। এবং নাইজেরিয়ার স্যামুয়েলের থেকে আমরা যেটা জানতে পারলাম যে সেখানে আসলে দুই ধরনের হয়, একজন হয় যাদের সাথে কন্ট্রাক্ট থেকে থাকে, যেসব এমপ্লয়ীদের সাথে কন্ট্রাক্ট থাকে সেটা কন্ট্রাক্ট দ্বারা আসলে তাদের রাইট গুলো আসলে নির্ধারিত হবে, এবং যারা ক্যাজুয়াল যারা শ্রমিক রয়েছে, ডে লেবার আছে, যারা মান্থলি আসলে শ্রমের বিনিময়ে কাজ করে থাকে, সো তাদের ক্ষেত্রে কিন্তু আসলে একেবারে তারা খুবই একটি অনিশ্চিত পরিস্থিতির মধ্যে সবসময় থাকেন, এবং যে কোনো সময় এমপ্লয়াররা আসলে তাদেরকে চাকরিচ্যুত করতে পারেন। সো এখন আমি অস্ট্রেলিয়ায় লুসির সাথে কথা বলবো, অস্ট্রেলিয়ান আইনজীবী লুসির সাথে কথা বলবো। লুসি, as I was saying that there are many undocumented immigrants in Australia. We also have many students, Bangladeshi students, who are studied in Australia, and many of them are part-timers there. So, I mean, during this situation, I mean, is Australian government taking any steps to help or support these part-timer workers or the undocumented immigrants? Is there any announcement from Australian government yet? Can you please tell us, Lucy?
Yes, of course. So at this stage, the federal government has not considered international students or migrants in its response to the pandemic when it has implemented the JobKeeper subsidy I mentioned earlier, as well as social security benefits. Some of the states within the country have taken steps at that level to put support packages together for international students and migrants on working visas. There has been push from each of the states and all of the unions and organisations such as Marrickville Legal Centre to try and encourage the federal government to include them in the subsidies that are being offered. In short, that hasn't been responded to, and at this stage there is no formal support being offered. The JobKeeper subsidy was widened, not necessarily widened, but offered to people who were New Zealand citizens or people who held permanent visas that fit the criteria as a worker to be eligible for JobKeeper. But otherwise, there's been very little offered unless international students or part-time workers on visas could access something at a state level. The issues that they face are quite different to other workers in this pandemic, and it has had ongoing effects to increases in domestic violence and in unemployment, as some of the options that they're left with are a matter of either trying to return to their country or potentially facing poverty and homelessness. There has been some flexibility given to visa holders, particularly international students, to give some grace as to the fact that they may not be able to fulfill the requirements of attending study to fulfill their visa requirements when universities or tertiary education is not available due to the lockdown. But otherwise, the only flexibility afforded is that there's been a short-term increase in hours that can be worked under part-time visas to 40 hours a fortnight for those essential workers. It was initially for international students, but has been expanded to allow for people who work in disability support services or nursing to work those extra hours if they're available. That's put a huge pressure on non-for-profit community organisations, universities to try and provide grants to their international students, as well as communities to step up and help those that are not being helped by the government.
থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ লুসি। প্রিয় দর্শক, লুসির কথা থেকে আমরা যেটা জানতে পারলাম যে এখন পর্যন্ত আসলে কেন্দ্রীয় সরকার, অস্ট্রেলিয়ার যে সেন্ট্রাল গভর্নমেন্ট, সেই পর্যায় থেকে কোনো ধরনের কোনো ডিসিশন নেওয়া হয়নি ইন্টারন্যাশনাল স্টুডেন্টদের ব্যাপারে, কিন্তু কিছু কিছু স্টেটে কিন্তু আসলে তাদেরকে সোশ্যাল সিকিউরিটির আন্ডারে আনা হচ্ছে বা তাদেরকে বেশ কিছু সাপোর্ট তাদেরকে প্রোভাইড করা হচ্ছে, এবং বিভিন্ন জায়গায় কমিউনিটি ফান্ড রেজিং এর মাধ্যমে তাদেরকে কিছু কিছু সাপোর্ট আসলে প্রোভাইড করা হচ্ছে। তো আমরা আসলে একেবারে শেষ পর্যায়ে চলে এসেছি। So we are at the end of the show. So if I can request Barrister Omar to wrap up the show and to close the discussion today. Barrister Omar.
Thank you very much. Yes, so I mean, we have heard our fellow lawyer friends from different parts of the world, and we all should understand, and the situation all around the world are more or less similar, despite having subtle differences in law, despite having the differences in economic condition, despite having the size of difference in stimulus packages. But everybody is going through a similar situation, and every country, irrespective of their economic strength, the employer and employee both are actually suffering, and we all are going through this time in the similar way. So we can only hope that the situation improves around the world in the shortest possible time, and maybe we shall also hope that a vaccine is invented, and we can actually put an end to the situation. So thank you very much. Thank you everybody for sparing your valuable time and accepting our invitation to join in this discussion. It was a pleasure having the discussion with all of you, and thank you, Sanjana, for asking me to summarize.
Thank you, Barrister Amor. Thank you, everyone. My heartfelt gratitude to you for giving time today, giving your precious time. We are at the end of the show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. প্রিয় দর্শক, আজকে আমরা প্রত্যেকে আমরা এই সারা পৃথিবী আজকে আসলে একটি নজিরবিহীন সময়ের মধ্যে দিয়ে আমরা পার করছি, এবং বিশ্ব অর্থনীতি ধসের মুখে অনেক মানুষ সারা বিশ্বে কর্মহীন হয়ে পড়ছে, এবং আজকে আলোচনার মাধ্যমে আমরা আসলে অন্যান্য দেশের কি পরিস্থিতি রয়েছে সেটি আসলে আমরা তাদের কাছ থেকে জানার চেষ্টা করলাম, এবং সেই দেশে আসলে কি ধরনের আইনগত পদক্ষেপ রয়েছে বা আইনগত ব্যবস্থা রয়েছে এই বিষয়গুলোকে পরিচালনা করার জন্য, এমপ্লয়ার এবং এমপ্লয়ের যে রাইট গুলো আছে সেগুলোকে পরিচালনা করার জন্য কি ধরনের আইন রয়েছে সেই সম্পর্কে আমরা কিছুটা হলেও জানার চেষ্টা করলাম। তো আপনাদের সকলকে ধন্যবাদ আমাদের সাথে থাকার জন্য। সকলে ভালো থাকবেন এবং নিরাপদে থাকবেন। আবার ধন্যবাদ জানিয়ে আমি ব্যারিস্টার মিতি সঞ্জনা আমাদের আজকে এই প্রোগ্রাম শেষ করছি। ধন্যবাদ।